hello and welcome everyone. So I'm Dr. Sabine Brels, the founding director of World Animal Justice, WAJ in short. We are a group of now 50 animal lawyers and 25 NGOs from all over the world. And our mission is to advance animal laws and their enforcement at national and supranational levels, as well as acting for the legal protection of animal rights and the global prohibitions of animal crimes. At the core mission of World Animal Justice is collaboration and mutual support between each other as animal lawyers and NGOs in sharing our knowledge and best practices to help more animal advocates to advance animal protection efficiently over the world. In this spirit, our brilliant speakers today will share the lessons they learned as animal lawyers and NGO leaders around the world, and you will have the chance to hear the presentations of 5 other experts from the 5 continents, meaning Sabina Bravo from Chile, who is the founder of Animal Law Focus, and Altamush Saeed, the founder of Environmental and Animal Rights Consultants in Pakistan, Jim Karani, who is the co-founder of Lawyers for Animal Protection in Africa, in Kenya, Olga Chevganiuk, the head of strategic initiatives at UAnimals in Ukraine, and lastly, Fiolita Berandhini, the director of Animals Don't Speak Human in Bali, Indonesia. And it's a huge honor for me and for us to have this outstanding panel of WAJ experts and NGO partners today. If I may kindly invite the speakers maybe to also open your video for the participants to see you, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. Maybe before going more into the practical details, as we are, yes, between us, would you be okay to share what are your main challenges and opportunities that you have found in your work of animal lawyers and NGO leaders in one word? So your biggest challenge in one word, what would it be? Like, Olga, would you like to start? Your biggest challenge in one word. What is
Russian aggression. Unfortunately, I would start from Russian aggression, the biggest challenge you are having.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, as animal lawyer and NGO leader yourself, Altamush, what is your biggest challenge in one word?
It's the poverty of empathy.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, thank you. Jim?
I will say purely ignorance. People refuse to gravitate to knowledge anymore.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Vio? Fiolita name is Vio. So what about you, Vio?
Yeah, I think in Indonesia, or especially for me, is the free of speech, because if we against the company, they will just like telling us that we are doing the defamation. So I think that's our biggest challenge.
Yeah, thank you. And what about you, Sabina, if you can say your biggest challenge?
Yeah. I think it's holding hope when progress is slow for animals. I think that's the biggest challenge for me.
Yeah, fully agree. And now, the biggest opportunity that you have found so far. So, Olga, what is it for you?
I think it's proactive people.
Proactive people?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Okay, yeah, great. Absolutely. Altamush?
I think it's education and giving people hope, actually.
Great. Jim?
The only way to fight ignorance is through compelling storytelling.
Yeah, and you're a great storyteller. Looking so much forward to hear your presentation. Vio?
From my side, it's collaboration. It's a big opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And Sabina?
Collaboration as well.
Mhm. Yes, exactly. That's also what I would say as a biggest opportunity. Yeah, so thank you so much for your participation in this first small round of questions to you, dear panelists. So what the participants can expect from this webinar? So today the speakers will highlight some practical challenges they have encountered along with the solutions they have developed to overcome them. And the purpose of this event is to inspire and empower other animal law advocates and NGO leaders across regions and countries worldwide. Ultimately, this event will generate a set of solutions and strategies to build resilience and scale our collective impact. So now just let me indicate a few practical points. So as we are in a meeting format, because we were not a big amount of participants, but with strong expertise in animal law and advocacy. So that's why we kept this meeting space format also to foster the exchange between us after the presentations. But for now, please keep your microphone off for now. And at the time of the Q&A that will be announced later on in the last part, you can just raise your hand if you want to participate or ask question, and I will be happy to give you the floor. This webinar is recorded, and each speaker will present during approximately 15 minutes. And afterwards, we will have a panel discussion and Q&A with the audience and you participants. So for now, just let me share a short introduction about what I wanted to tell you today, which is only my own perspective on some challenges and opportunities. So here, sharing. Okay. So some challenges and opportunities. Just as a start, of course, these days are marked by the big loss of Jane Goodall, who did so much for the animal cause, and who was also very, very conscious of the strong power of big entities that foster animal exploitation and violence in this world amongst humans, nature, and animals. What are the main challenges that we can face as animal lawyers and as animal NGOs? So here are, of course, very summarized challenges, right? But these are the main ones that we can face. So, of course, economical challenges. As we know, money rules the world, and there is unfortunately more money in animal exploitation than in animal protection. And there is also a lack of political will and some resistances caused by the, say, lobby power. And we still lack an efficient counterpower for animal protection. Social challenges as well. There is slow changes of behavior norms, be it from culture, religion, traditions, and so on. And of course, animal product consumption are still the norm for many people around the world. We need systematic changes and with more alternative accessibility and affordability. On our side, we have more and more science and ethics. In science, animal suffering is now well evidenced for most exploited animals, all invertebrates, of course, and also more and more invertebrates. Animal ethics, since centuries now, that calls for stopping preventable human-induced suffering to animals and to avoid this suffering via the use of alternative, for instance, so to choose non-animal products and non-animal methods. And what about the law? So please bear with me for over summarizing here, but for time's sake, I will make the long story short. So there is more and more anti-cruelty laws since 2 centuries, starting with UK and colonies and spreading all around the world. And it was the same for animal welfare laws since the 20th century. Animal welfare is now embryonic at the UN. We have had a first resolution mentioning animal welfare in 2022, but still there is no global animal protection law framework to date, contrarily to other convention framework at the UN, for instance, on biodiversity or other concerns, but not for animal protection as individuals. Animal rights is a concept emerging more and more in court decisions, especially in South American countries, India and Pakistan, since a bit more than 10 years now. But there is still a lack of strong global protections for animals and enforcement, which is everywhere. There is enforcement issues a bit everywhere in the world, more or less, but I mean, animal protection is still considered as a secondary concern in comparison to human protection and environmental protection, for instance. As animal lawyers and NGOs, our key actions, here again, it's super summarized. And of course, we can talk of more sub-actions that also are super important. But for the sake of making it as clear and short as possible, we have advocacy to propose some law changes. So it can be some new legislation, some amendments, strengthening penalties, for instance, about anti-cruelty laws, or having constitutional provisions or new instruments for animals at regional or international level. It can be also the lobbying for pushing the adoption of these law reforms. So it's lobbying is directly to the decision makers that lobbying is done. We have campaigning, which is for gathering public support about the changes that we are asking. So here campaigning is through petitions and other public actions. And we have litigation when we need to urge the decision makers to enforce the laws. And so just to end this short presentation and introduction, I wanted to share my small tip of how I am finding strength in adversity and how I could manage to build resilience in difficult times. Because, you know, like many of you, I believe in this call, I really feel a lot of time that there is too much animal suffering in this world, and that the only thing I can do is just a drop in the ocean. But the good news is that we are all drops, and together we are the ocean. And our movement is really growing fast all around the world. And this ocean one time will make a difference. And it's already making a difference. It's maybe not big enough, but we are already making a difference. So thank you very much for being part of this movement and making a difference for animals. So thank you very much for listening. And now I will be more than happy to give the floor to other speaker today, in starting with Sabina. Bravo. So Sabina, when I'm introducing you, you can start to share your presentation if you want. So Sabina is the founding director of Animal Law Focus in Chile, which is an organization driving legal change for farmed animals in the global south. She leads investigations, strategic litigation, and policy advocacy to close systematic enforcement gaps and push for higher animal welfare standards. Her work centers on making the legal system a tool for visibility, accountability, and transformation in the animal agriculture industry. She is also the director of Effective Altruism in Chile. So, dear Sabina, the floor is yours for a presentation on the challenges and lessons from animal law in South America. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabine. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today on this important day for animals. I would like to begin by saying that this beautiful region of Latin America is not yet among the most progressive regions, but when it comes to animal law, but certainly it's promising. Across this continent, we see new constitutional reforms, national decrees, and court rulings that acknowledge animal welfare and animal sentience. And I would like to begin by reviewing very shortly these advances from the last 10 years. We started in 2016, Colombia recognizes animals as sentient beings, leaving behind their status as objects and granting them special protection. Then in Peru, Peru establishes an animal welfare law applicable to companion animals, farm animals, experimental animals, not experimental animals used in experimentation, and wild animals in captivity. In 2017, Argentina banned greyhound racing throughout the country, penalizing its organization. This is a huge example for my own country, from Chile, because this is a special challenge for Chile. And it's encouraging to know that Argentina, being a neighbor of us, could do this, like ban greyhound racing. The same year in Chile, penalties for animal use were expanded because of the animal welfare law in 2009. And just taking a step forward in 2020 and 2023, the constitutional process for a new constitution drafted two proposals of new constitution for Chile, and animals were recognized as subjects of special protection in those constitutional drafts. Sadly, both drafts for this new constitution were rejected, like in general, in a referendum. But we had like the amazing support of all the citizenship to impose this animal protection in the constitution. So we have hopes for the future for a new project for the new constitution. In Costa Rica, the law 9458 classifies acts of cruelty as crimes punishable by up to 3 years in prison. In 2022, even the Supreme Court, in the case of the lion Kivu, reaffirmed that animals are sentient beings that must live in dignified conditions. I love specifically that concept of dignified conditions. In 2020, Brazil increased penalties for mistreating dogs and cats to up to 5 years in prison. This is the highest penalty for animal cruelty in the region. And currently, the Senate is discussing a draft for a modification for the civil code to recognize animals as sentient beings and not movable property or objects. In 2021, Mexico prohibits the testing of cosmetic products on animals. In Ecuador, we had a case law in 2022. The Constitutional Court recognized that individual animals are entitled to protection under the rights of nature. In 2024, Colombia also prohibits animal testing for cosmetics. And also in 2024, Colombia banned bullfighting, cockfighting, corralejas, and coleo by the Constitutional Court through the law 2385, known as the No More Ole law. More like in nowadays, like in 2024 in Mexico City, the civil code recognizes animals as sentient beings. In several states, penalties for mistreatment have been threatened with up to 6 years in prison. I want to make the difference. This modification for 6 years in prison for animal cruelty is for some states, and it's not in the federal level like all Mexico. So that's why Brazil still has the highest prison penalty, like as a country. 2025, Mexico also prohibits the use of dolphins and other marine mammals in shows, recreational activities, and any commercial or profit-making purpose. Chile in 2025 prohibits animal testing in the manufacture of cosmetic products and their sale, marketing, importation, and introduction into the market. The last two biggest advances right now is Mexico City. The traditional bullfighting was banned in favor of a non-violent alternative. Now bullfighters are restricted to use in caves only. Brazil also prohibits the use of animals in testing for cosmetics, personal hygiene products, and perfumes at the federal level. But despite all these advances and progress, we also face challenges every day. And I will mention only those related to farm animal rights, because there are many others that surround like the animal rights movement in general. The first challenge is weak enforcement. Most countries have animal welfare laws, yes, but they are rarely applied. Fines are low, inspections are scarce, and corruption often protects big companies while smaller ones are punished. And on paper, the laws look strong, but in practice, they're very weak. The second challenge I see is legal gaps. Most laws say that animals must not suffer unnecessarily, but they're too general. A lot of them cover transport and slaughter of farm animals, but not always what happens inside farms. So companies can claim cruelty isn't illegal if it's not clearly mentioned during their breeding of animals. The third challenge I see is the industry power. Across the livestock and aquaculture industry. Aquaculture is also a kind of farming. So across Latin America, lobbying still shapes animal laws. In Argentina, recently, they even reversed a ban on live exports. And in Chile, events like rodeos and greyhound races remain protected despite the cruelty involved in this. They call it like entertainment, or even rodeo, they call it a sport. Economic interests often come first than animals. Welfare measures are dismissed as too costly, and profit keeps outweighing compassion. The fourth challenge that I see is the uneven progress. Some countries like Mexico, Colombia, have made big steps forward, while others like Brazil, for example, have weakened protection, Brazil and Argentina. And in many places, traditions, politics, and lack of will still slow real change. So as animal lawyers, we have these are the three biggest challenges, strategies that I've seen so far. The legislative, advocacy, lobbying, and all that, it has its strengths, like can change the rules of the game in a structural way. But the weakness is a slow process, depending on political will, subject to corporate lobbying. The strategic litigation, the strengths, is that high-profile cases can set precedents and create social pressure, but the weaknesses is that it's expensive, it's slow, requires significant human and financial capital, and we can have few quick wins. And the administrative strategy The strength is that it uses existing regulations, puts pressure on the authorities to enforce them, allows for closures of companies and or re-inspections now. And the weaknesses, of course, depends on the capacity, the program of the government and the budget of the state, and may be perceived, of course, as less glamorous than a new law or a major lawsuit, because it happens like in the shadows, mainly in the shadows. It's not very visible. So in Animal Focus, we opted for this strategy. Not that we are not using a strategic litigation or legislative advocacy, just we identify 5 reasons. It has faster impact. We have the available tools. We can set practical precedents. We can gain public visibility, like drafting the message correctly. And it's highly scalable to other countries. So in our first year applying this strategy, we have had like concrete outcomes, and I will mention 3 of them. First, the infractions ranking that you can find in our website, animallawfocus.org. This is one of the rankings of the companies dedicated to livestock, not aquaculture, and it's only a period of 1 year. So you can see that the first company had 15 fines that year, and the highest fine was $43,000. The infraction was for protection of animals at the time of the slaughter. In this ranking, we have seen like Chile's largest producers such as AgroSuper, Aristia, and Sopraval. They also, like, for example, Aristia is in the number 5 and AgroSuper is in the number 4. So they're not like excluded on this rankings of fines. The second result have been that we have found the worst breaches and in companies. We've been compilating 2 years of information, 3 years of information, of like 6 years of infraction history, and we selected like a few companies, 30 companies that were the worst offenders, and we asked for specific findings of these companies. And this case, the slaughterhouse number 1 had 15 infractions a year. They were temporarily closed, and these are the examples of violations, like leaving 36 live chickens in the reception with a fasting of 28 hours and 10 minutes. And the other offending was a fasting of 34 hours. Also, the 90% of the birds were not properly stunned, showing positive corneal reflex and incorporation. 2 unbled chickens were detected that were sent alive to the scalding tank. And the disclaimer of this, like the defense of these companies, that there is in the regulation on farm animals that we have 3 specific degrees. There is not exact mention of the corneal reflex as a sign of consciousness. So technically it wasn't illegal. The SAG, that is the authority in charge of farm animals in Chile, rejected the defense, and still it issued fines of around $3,500 and $14,300. But this case shows us like a huge loophole. Like the decrees lack precise criteria for stunning, leaving these spaces for these companies to act cruelly towards animals. And that is, in this case, the defense was rejected by the SAG only because the SAG has some space to act according to their own criteria. But there is not like an objective criteria specified in the law. The second slaughterhouse that I want to show you, it had 16 infractions in 3 years. So we can see the difference. The other one was closed with 15 infractions in 1 year, and this was closed after 16 infractions in 3 years. This also shows us the difference in criteria between regional directors of the SAG, because these cases are analyzed by the regional directors of SAG. You can find like a SAG regional director that is very pro animals, but also you can find another one that is very pro industry. And of course, these two cases were located in different regions of Chile. So this case particularly, the only thing that I want to highlight of this, you can see the fragments, but the one that I want to highlight is that the stunning equipment was not recognized by international standards and not suitable for horses and cattle. And they use electricity and cold water showers to kill the animals. They were also temporarily closed. They had a history of repeating sanctions, and they were fined $3,500 and closed for 1 month to remedy these violations. But this, as I said, reveals the lack of like this objective criteria for closure, like how many violations a company has to have in order to be closed, and in what kind of period, like 1 year, 3 years, 6 months. There is no mention to that in any space, in any part of the law. Finally, our most recent outcome was the first national map of infringements. For the first time, citizens have in Chile have this access to this map that shows companies that were engaged in the breeding and slaughter of farm animals, including aquaculture facilities, along with their profiles, which include the name, the legal representative, that is very important for us in order to pursue any litigation against them, the company size, and the violations that they had in the last 5 years, along with the fines imposed and among other information. Like this is how the maps looks in our website. And you can see chickens, slaughterhouses, dairy farms, pig farms, and this is the kind of profile that it shows for the companies. Like this is specifically a company related to one of the biggest producers of chicken in Chile. You will see the name, the owner, company representative, and the infractions and the fines that were issued. So what are we gonna do with all this information and these first outcomes that we have been? By identifying these worst offenders and publishing these rankings and the map, like putting them out there, like for all of the Chileans to see, we are not only to expose this cruelty, but also to drive real change. We will take, of course, legal action against specific companies, at least 2. We're preparing a strategic litigation to support the concept of that it's possible to have animal cruelty offense in farm animals that are recognized by our society as economic assets, products, and not sentient beings. That is still possible. They can suffer, and they have the right to be protected by this animal cruelty offense in the criminal code. Also, we want to propose of the decrees that depend from the SAG, that is administrative strategy, to work directly with the SAG because it's faster, it's easier than go to the Congress. But if we need to promote like stronger laws for certain things, of course we're gonna do it. I think we chose one strategy, but the other ones are not left outside. We can complement the 3 of them. At the same time, by sharing all this information publicly, we create this social pressure, so these violations are seen for what they are. This is a systemic cruelty that must be stopped. And the first person that has to ask for this to stop is the citizenship, is the society of Chile. So that's why we started also a signature campaign that has been very successful so far. the lessons learned very quickly. I don't know how I'm doing with the time.
Yes, you have time to finish briefly. Yes, thank you.
Okay. The lessons learned are the transparency creates accountability. The accessing and publishing of official enforcement data exposes the industry practices and makes infractions visible to the public. The existing laws are not powerless. Even with these legal gaps, the decrees and current regulations allow fines, closures, and re-inspections. The patterns matter more than isolated cases. Like by ranking companies and mapping the violations, animal law focus showed systemic failures, not just like isolated cases or anecdotes or just one specific violation. The industry resistance reveals loopholes. The companies repeatedly argued that the inspectors' findings were not explicitly listed in the law, but that serves us a lot because we can identify loopholes thanks to them. Public visibility shifts the debate. The national map of unpublished rankings made animal welfare violations impossible to ignore for the media, the public, regulators. And the scalability beyond Chile, the administrative approach is replicable in other countries that have transparency law to access official data and have regulatory systems for animals. An animal law focus, we are not preparing to expand this strategy beyond Chile to Argentina, that is in the early stage of research, Peru as well, Ecuador, Colombia, and Uruguay, and hopefully next year we will start looking for some Africa and Asia countries. We look for collaboration with local organizations because we believe in local knowledge that as a valuable tool. So we always want to use this strategy in that specific country. What all of this show us is that animal law in Latin America is still very young, but full of potential every day now. And each country faces its own barriers, weak enforcement, vague laws, and a strong industry pressure. Yet each also holds tools for progress, whether through legislation, litigation, or administrative enforcement. What truly matters is the will to use the law as a living instrument, not just a written promise. So I think change will not come from one reform or one organization only, but from a growing network of people who refuse to accept cruelty as normal, this systemic cruelty. I think that is the path forward. Latin America region where animal protection is not the exception, but the rule, and is so because of us, because we united our efforts and our minds and we put it into this. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Sabina, for this comprehensive presentation of your work. Yeah, this very innovative and promising approach about the administrative infractions and closure of slaughterhouses. And yes, your takeaway conclusions are amazing and absolutely refusing systemic cruelty together and finding ways to stop this cruel industry is, of course, the key. So thank you very, very much for your hard work. Now I'm glad to introduce the next speaker, who is fighting for animal rights and against ecocide as well in her country in the terrible ongoing context of war. And it is Olga Chevganiuk. Olga, I kindly invite you while I'm introducing you to share your presentation. Wonderful. So Olga is a Ukrainian animal rights activist and the head of strategic initiatives at UAnimals. With a background in organizational management, she joined the NGO UAnimals in 2018, helping it to grow as the largest animal rights movement in Ukraine. She leads the Stop Ecocide Ukraine campaign and advocates for stronger animal protection laws. Her work extends to international collaborations with organizations such as Stop Ecocide Ukraine, Fear-Free Alliance, and Dolphinarium Free Europe, strengthening global efforts for animal welfare and ecological protection. Dear Olga, truly honored to have you on board today, and now the floor is yours to present your challenges and lessons as a lawyer and animal advocate in Ukraine. Thank you, Olga.
Thank you, Sabine, and thanks everyone for taking your time on Saturday and joining this event. And truly thank you all for all the work you do. So, still in Ukraine, we have ongoing full-scale invasion, and UAnimals started far beyond the full-scale invasion. Nowadays, we're saving animals and nature from war. We're not going to stop here a lot on the work we're doing. You're very welcome to see our report. We have daily reports on our social media, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. So yeah, you're very welcome to check on this. I will stop on our advocacy work nowadays, today. So I'll start from the Stop Ecocide Ukraine campaign, which Sabine has already mentioned. Like here in the photo, you see the day when Kakhovka Dam was destroyed by Russians, and thousands of animals were under the layer of the water. And far beyond that, we saw that Russia is destroying nature, and we realized we have to make to do something, not just save animals right now and right here, but also campaigning abroad to make Russia pay one day for the crimes it's doing, and to bring the world's attention towards it. So the aim of Stop Ecocide Ukraine campaign is to hold Russia accountable one day for the ecological crimes, and also for the ecocide to be recognized as the serious international crime. That's why we're also the part of Stop Ecocide worldwide campaign. Through this time, it's already very soon it will be the 4th year as we're doing it. One of the things we learned, and I want to stress on it in my today's speech, is the campaigns, as you see on the photo, very quickly they stop working. And the normal campaign as a demonstration or something people are getting used to quickly are not bringing the result already. So what we need to do is to think about other creative approaches to draw attention of people all around the world to even such a horrible situation as in Ukraine. So here are some examples we've been doing. This is the COP conference, COP29 in November 2025 in Baku, where we, together with the official Ukrainian pavilion, have made this VR exposition where diplomats, leaders of the countries, everyone who wanted, they could see what is actually happening in Ukraine, including forests burned, dolphins trying to escape, the ships and the sounds and suffering as well, and all other types of animals. And this was really huge because people got emotional, and somehow people, when they're able to see it in the way it is happening, they feel more empathy when they just listen about it or read or something else. Another things we've done, on the left, you can see this nest of the war, which actually represents the need of the birds to nest not in Ukraine, but in the regions nearby, which they're not used to because they've been using the same territory for many, many decades. So that's why the populations suffer. On the right, this is a statue in Wall Street, New York, and the bull is escaping on it, the ecocide caused by Russia. So these instruments, they help us bring attention not only of general public, but of diplomats and deputies, MPs, everyone who make decisions. Another project UAnimals is having is legal aid to citizens. So we're having this system in Telegram where we are able, where every person is able to leave a request about any type of animal cruelty, and our team is providing the assistance in these cases of cruelty. What we learned through this time is that when people know their rights, they become our partners. And then when they are our partners, the policy is forced to work. And not only us as an organization is doing the work, but just simple people are becoming the part of the movement. And we give the tools, we help them first, and they become change makers together with us. And they make actually and press the authorities to work. Another stream we're having is our lawmaking and the government relations work. Like here, you can see us signing the memorandum with our defense leaders to have vegan, plant-based menu for soldiers in Ukraine. But in general, what we understand that we need to keep going and to change the laws even during the wartime. And in our work, what helps us a lot is not to be against the main topics which are in the society nowadays. And of course, it is Ukrainians' victory and the help to defend Ukraine, but to be in line with it. So all our projects which are successful nowadays are staying in line with the ongoing situation in Ukraine. So yes, this is our strategy. And I would want to say that even during the wartime, we were able to do, I don't know, for farming ban or circuses with animals ban, but it would be lies, because if you see the results which we're having, all of them are in line with something what is happening nowadays. So what we managed to do is to ban the fireworks, and we were campaigning for this before full-scale invasion, but people didn't hear us. Nowadays, where every person is stressed and has a really very complicated psychological state, and hearing any sound becomes very stressed, people can refer their feelings to animals' feelings, and that's how we've got this ban of the fireworks. Animals now allowed to the bomb shelters, which was not in our legislation before full-scale invasion. We managed to change the norms of transporting animals in buses and in the train, also partly because of our work, but on the other side, partly because of many people who need to relocate from the dangerous part of Ukraine to the so-called safely parts of Ukraine. They have their animals, and we needed this rule so people can evacuate themselves with their animals. Another project we're having are educational projects. So on this photo, it's the prosecutor's office, and we had a training with them for the prosecutors, which is already big because this is it was the will of the official office, and they were ready to cooperate with us. And we were trying to raise their level of knowledge, so they investigate the cases more effective. What we understood is that training legal professionals, it's not only about their knowledge, it's also about their motivation. Sabine, actually, thank you. She was the part of the training, telling her experience. And we also had another specialist from other parts of the world, Mark Randall, who actually linked the crime against animals with crimes against people. And them seeing this link, they also saw another side of these crimes. So hopefully in a long term, it will work. Besides, we have different complementary projects because legal work, JAR work, it needs to be supported. That's why we keep building the public opinion with our social media, not to promote ourselves or to say how good we are. Our team is really good, but just for you're good, I would highly suggest you to check UAnimals pages for the way we communicate, for the way we report and fundraise, because in my opinion, when I started to visit different conferences all around the world, I suddenly find out that the specialists on communications and fundraising from individual donors abroad, they actually show Ukrainian UAnimals page as an example. For our transparency, for our way of reporting, for our feeling we give to people when they become the part of everything what we do. And that's why I think it really helps us to bring this attention, to unite people together, even when it's illegal, and especially when it's a legal topic and we have the case. Then we show how we work. It's not only about the problem, but leading through the process, the reactions we're having, the responses we're having or not having. So when people, they see all this process on our social media, they start to feel the part of the solution, and they want to support more and more, and they start to tag everyone, and they help us to create this pressure, and this eventually helps us to change something. Also, we launched actually this year the program for school, because we need to think strategically, and all of us realize we will not change everything for the best of animals through our lifetime, and next generation will need to continue our work. So why should we lose this possibility? We try to change our school program, adding materials and topics, and also lobbying it through our Ministry of Education to make it the part of normal school process. It also includes the volunteering, not only knowledge. So people will start to have this as a normal habit. They learn something, they practice, they volunteer, and it's all included in the school program. So in long term, it will help us to make systematic changes. So I'd like to make a conclusion that even, and actually especially in the wartime, justice for animals is possible, and justice for animals is also the justice for humanity. If you have any questions, ideas of collaboration, I will be glad to stay in touch. Thank you so much, and thank you, Sabine.
Thank you so very much, Olga. As it was mentioned in the chat, yes, you are true heroes for animals. And I remember when we discussed it together the first time, when you told me the stories of the team and volunteers going to the front line to save animals and also risking your lives. For that, I believe this is the best example we can have probably of full dedication and even the sense of sacrifice for saving other lives. So thank you for thinking of animals as you do, and for doing so much of a hard work to save thousands of lives so far. So yes, congratulations for that, and all my admiration again. So
Thank
now
you.
Most welcome. So now I'm glad to introduce our next speaker, who is Altamush Saeed, who is also such a pioneer and a hero in his country for animals in Pakistan. So Altamush is a Pakistani lawyer, professor, and activist specializing in interspecies justice with expertise in environmental, animal, human rights, and also international disaster law. He is the founder of the first film of its kind called Environmental and Animal Rights Consultants in Pakistan, the country's inaugural international conference on these issues, and also several justice-focused organizations. He has advanced legal and grassroots reforms nationwide. Globally recognized, he has been honored with prestigious awards and definitely leads the way for animals in his country and beyond. Dear Altamush, it's really an honor to give you the floor for your presentation on animal law and global movement building in Pakistan. Over to you.
Dear Sabine, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm just gonna confirm from you that you can see my presentation, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So, because I'm not good on tech. So, firstly, thank you so much. And this is a perspective directly from Pakistan. This is not much about the work we do outside because there's a lot to do here, and we have very limited, number of people who are working passionately for these causes. So, this is just a story of Pakistan and not globally that much, but there are some aspects that I will share very briefly. This presentation is divided into 6 to 7 parts. And while these are projects that we have initiated just in the last 2 years, these are also strategies that can be used in other countries and projects that we generally believe will lead to more space for animals in different spaces. The legal space is a very different one, as navigating as a lawyer, doing the same in an educational setting with students who have never heard about animal rights is entirely different. And then advocating for animal rights in Islamic settings, which is important for Pakistan because for those who don't know, Islam is actually part of our constitution, so it is law. And we use it from a perspective of advocating for animal rights because it is full of it, but it does not see or get forefront attention. And for the listeners, there's a 2 billion Muslim population in the world, and there's no dedicated text available to advocate for animal and environmental rights proper, even human rights in Islam. And then the other development is, of course, our conference, which I'll share very briefly, and so on and so forth. However, to encapsulate everything, what I call my theory of change is actually interspecies justice. Because I think at the end of the day, we all know, as I mentioned, that one of the problems that we face in Pakistan is the poverty of empathy, and the solution actually is education. So whenever we're talking about animals, truly, we are speaking from a lens of freedom, right? And I generally believe that freedom belongs to all of us. It's the people who are working with the animals, taking care of them, loving them in the best way possible. It's the environment that we live in that we call our home. So we have to bring about a solution where freedom is available for everybody and everybody can be part of it. So that's why whenever we advocate for anything, we make sure that there's inclusion of human, animal, and environmental rights, which to us is interspecies justice. And we will see a few examples of those in our work. Initially, as a legal organization, and the first one, we did face a lot of challenges because there were no animal laws on the book available that we could use in court. But for those, for those who have not heard about the Pakistani legal system, there is actually a space available under Article 199 of our Constitution. For lawyers, this is very important because any person can essentially go to court when his or her fundamental rights is violated. And initially, because animal rights proper do not exist in our constitution, what we do is we advocate for animals through human rights. And that can be, for example, through animal cruelty affecting human beings. It can be something we haven't used yet, but factory farming is one of our next subjects that we're going to use in the courts. We also use Islamic perspectives, but I do have to mention that animal rights proper does not exist in our constitution. So we have to take the burden or the help of the human being to go to court. And while we are working on that, the court does acknowledge sentience. It's still something that we have to be very carefully using. So initially, and this is also a challenge or a development, is that the movement in Pakistan is actually very, very new. So the main animal that's discussed across the country is actually dogs. And that is important because when you are starting something really new, you can't actually start with achieving your end goal, which for us is total animal liberation and end of animal crimes. So initially, as a piece of strategy, we felt that this issue was something that connected most with our audiences. And that was something we wanted to start and fix. So we came in, we filed around 16 lawsuits. They were very expensive. But we won at least actually all of them except the ones that are going on through court. Three of them resulted into major landmark judgments around banning this practice of dog culling, which is basically poisoning dogs or shooting them as a mechanism of keeping their population under control, which does not work. So we proposed a new law, which was called the Punjab Animal Birth Control Policy. It finally reached, its full legal value when the court gave the final decision, which was this year on the January 14th in Hamza Khan versus Government of Punjab. However, one of the other challenges that we faced in the legal regime was implementation. So we had to file a few more lawsuits to basically make, because as lawyers, we also have to understand if it's not precisely written there, you can't use it in court. It's very common. So we had to help the government understand there were some violations, grave violations that are happening. For example, a very simple one of us would be that you need a veterinarian or an expert to analyze whether a dog is rabid or not. A random person cannot just go and say that it was rabid and we shot them. That's a violation. So we got that under a judgment, and that kept on developing. Initially, we moved on, and still a problem because implementation is a major issue in our country, but we have that law on the paper now. We fought another lawsuit in another jurisdiction in our federal capital, advocating for implementation of an already existing policy on the same subject matter. We actually have the hearing for that on the 9th of October, and we're looking for some really good results. To diversify the problem, because we had to move the movement forward, we focused on the next animal that everybody was connecting with in Pakistan, which was wild animals. We did that out of choice, but we felt that this could be something that would be heard by the judges, which is another challenge that we continuously face in our work. There are not a lot of judges who are interested in hearing these arguments. At one hearing, I was told that I would get a ₹500,000 fine if I brought the same case back here. That actually happened with me. So we have to be careful. And with wild animals, our first case initially was about banning of use of wild animals in circuses. Something for us is a major animal crime, but it did exist and does exist right now in Pakistan. But we are very hopeful to getting two big judgments in two different provinces where animal usage in circuses is completely banned. It will come out in a few months. We're very, very hopeful about that because the argument was crafted in a very particular manner. And then recently there was, and this is important to clarify, is animal rights is not a federal subject here in Pakistan. So the government, the parliament cannot directly make a law on this. You have to go to every different state and do the same thing, like repeating it, but it's really hard. And so right now, we are focusing on expanding the dog culling problem issue and fixing it across the country. And our next lawsuit is for a province that has possibly never had any animal rights judgments ever given because nobody filed them, is in Balochistan, because a recent notification came out where the government was going to kill the dogs. So legally stopping it is very, very important because if we have meetings with them, it was just going to be a mere negotiation. Unless you have it on paper, it would not carry legal value if something like this happens in the future as well. So what the law ensures is continuity and gives people a trail that they can use in advocating for these issues. And the next one that we're planning right now is particularly for farm animals, which is the first of its kind policy for live animal transport. I'm so shocked to say this that we don't have it in Pakistan. And I have to use the disease or zoonotic disease angle because there were a lot of diseases coming up in this industry during travel, such as the Congo virus that came up in the Eid event in June, and there were some other diseases that are coming up as well that are very common. And we have to use all those arguments that Sabine, you also mentioned the money thing, the economics, and just put them all together to bring animals to the surface. So that's something we're working actively on, and hopefully in a few weeks that case will be listed in court to be heard as well. Uh, just to put all the challenges together because my presentation is here and there. Initially, police, which is, for example, the first body that is responsible for ensuring that animal crimes are even registered or accepted, because if the police doesn't register an application, there will be no investigation. And in many cases, they don't do that. There is a legal way to go about it. We have to file a case, but it takes 2 to 3 months, which further slows down the process. But we're building precedent on that as well. However, the police not being cognizant of these issues, which is something we see across the board, judges are not cognizant of these issues as well. They're not willing to listen. There's just 2 to 3 judges who are interested in animal rights argument. The Islamic space is often misused to advocate against animal cruelty, but there is so much there to talk about. And lastly, the education perspective, where human-centric education is something we are taught across the grades. Like, for example, there's nothing on animal welfare and ethics, or even basic ethics in our our primary, secondary system, universities. You don't get to even study those things. And we're changing that slowly. And I'll show you how that's happening. And the last one that's, really scares me is the money problem. Um, in the last year, there's a new donkey slaughterhouse industry coming up in Pakistan, and it's a huge issue because the government is supporting it because of political issues, and I have to be very cautious on how to go about it. We have some organizations, but we have to wait and see how this problem is, taken to courts, or how does it actually happen, because it is something that needs to be challenged. To address these issues, firstly, we focus on education. This is more standard education. And since this year, environmental law as a course is mandatory across all law schools in Pakistan. We knew we couldn't get animal law on the board, but we said that, let's start with environmental law. And now we're working to introduce an animal law submodule in each of those courses. So in a way, animal law will be taught at every law school in Pakistan. It's going to take time, but it's definitely a way forward, and we're half done with it. Secondly, we have developed some courses that we've already taught at several law schools in Pakistan on environmental law, animal law, and the one that I'm very excited about is that from January 2026, Pakistan will finally have its first ever course on food system policy and law, because I want to bring factory farming to the center, and let's see how it happens. But changing traditionally education systems was one of the first things that we started in, and we have been very successful. On the other side of things, we started a small fellowship as well. This is for students who do not, are not in law schools, but are interested in animal rights. So we work with them and study the theory and the property angle, for example, all the problems and how they can develop projects. And it can just be about dogs, which is perfectly all right. But connecting the people directly with how these things happen on the ground is very important on changing the future of how students see animal rights proper across Pakistan. This is something that we're working globally on, and it needs to pick up steam, is the Pillars of Peace program. And this is something I developed as a KFG graduate. I'm happy to see that you were there this year. So we built it there, and the basic idea was advocating for human, animal, and environment rights from an Islamic perspective. I'm not going to go into the deep arguments of how it is, but we developed a curriculum, and right now in Pakistan, we're directly teaching imams, who are our faith-based leaders, on these topics. And we start with everything because we want perfect inclusion and perfect interspecies justice. So we will advocate for women rights. We will advocate for animal rights. We will advocate for, from a climate change perspective, we advocate more on the disaster perspective. That's more important to us because currently we had a major flood and we're having these every year now. So I want people to understand that the disaster perspective is directly linked to how we treat animals and factory farming. And by the way, I'm not going to go in detail, but factory farming as it is completely impermissible with Islam. So if you need anything on that, I'm happy to, but not today. And then we recently had our second training that happened just last month, where we went to a new city and started talking about these things. So to make sure that this project actually yields something, something that is binding in Islamic culture is that these imams have to deliver a lecture called a khutbah, which is mandatory for every Muslim to listen every Friday. So when they speak about it, instead of me or anybody in this audience, people actually listen and they agree with it because they believe them to be a higher authority even than their legal system. And that is where the social part of how we're going to fix this problem actually comes into play. Maybe the legal angle might not work. Maybe we just have to work with other people who believe to be the law as well. So changing them is very important. And this is going to have a global reach because there's 2 billion Muslims and things will change. to develop the local grassroots movement in Pakistan, we had our first ever conference this year, which was very well supported by a lot of organizations. I'm very grateful for World Animal Justice as well for supporting us and several others. This conference was hosted and had over 700 people. It was the first plant-based conference in our country's history. I got a lot of slack for it, but it's okay. And we had several judges, the few judges that I told you about before, who actually care about animal rights and have given judgments. We had people from WAJ and everybody come together. I know this may seem very common for you guys. This was the first one in Pakistan. It was really, really hard to pull it off. So, and it created a space for activists from all over the country to come together. We gave scholarships because we wanted students to, see these things. And hopefully we'll have one next year as well. And we discussed everything about animal rights. And it was, I believe, too much. So next year we're going to make it a bit easier for people to understand. So in the right, if you see a picture of this of an old person, my apologies, it's Justice Athar Minallah. You've read his judgment. This is the Kavan judgment he gave on which closed the zoo in Islamabad and was the first cardinal judgment that talked about animals having sentient rights in Pakistan. So he was at our conference, he was our keynote speaker, and he helps us in these things and developing them at different legal systems. So it was brilliant. And to further advocate for the faith-based angles I mentioned before, right now I'm working with a few other authors, writing the world's first book on veganism, animal ethics, and Islam. That is going to be something useful for everybody across the world. And now I want to show you where social and animal rights and sorry.
Sorry to interrupt, Altamush. May I kindly invite you to close your presentation, please? To
Yeah,
give
yeah,
enough
absolutely.
time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. I just need a minute. This is basically where the social, legal, human, animal rights connects. These are pictures from the floods of 2022, where 1/3 of my country was underwater. So we work for humans and animals at the same time, building systems, building water projects that ensure that disasters don't happen. But we create spaces for animals to intersect with human beings as well, where there's a space available where both of them can benefit from it, because we're all equal victims of disasters. And that this is more of our social work on the ground, because grassroots is important, and helping these people understand is really, really important. Women are major beneficiaries of these projects because they don't have to walk miles anymore in getting clean water for their families. This was one of our disaster zone animal sites, the first one of its kind projects, where we saved around 8,000 farm animals during the floods. And we created this small temporary facility to which we activate whenever a disaster strikes, to show people that animals are victims of disasters. And while we support them, we also support animals and human beings together. And we have to do that in a way that works. We have to develop indigenous projects which maybe have nothing to do with animals, but human rights proper, and help connect or create communities where things happen. This was one of our schools, which was fully vegan, and we helped students understand about animal rights through artwork and everything. And yeah, I think I will end there. My apologies for going over time, but sometimes we have to go outside of the legal. We have to just go on the ground and be kids and develop systems where we can build, whatever we want, but on the ground. And then it just all connects across the country to bring profound change. So, and that is interspecies justice. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, Altamush. You're a real hero and pioneer in Pakistan, and inspiring us much beyond that. All your actions are truly impressive, and yes, in the Islamic context, as you raised, there's a lot to do, and thank you so much for doing it so well and having so much actions that you're leading for animals, for humans, for environment. You have all my admiration again, and in the participants, I know it's a shared one. For sake of time, we'll reserve the questions and answers again in the end of the presentation. So now I'm really, really honored to introduce Jim Karani, the next speaker. So Jim, you can share your presentation while I'm introducing you. Thank you so much. Yes, so Jim is the co-founder of Lawyers for Animal Protection in Africa, LAPA in Kenya, a nonprofit organization, and he advises on criminal, animal, and environmental law, working in the courts with policymakers and stakeholders to strengthen the legal protection of wildlife species and the habitats they live in. Is currently pursuing a research interests in environmental criminology through a PhD in criminal justice at John Jay College in New York, USA. Dear Jim, thank you very, very much for being with us today, and I'm now pleased to give you the floor for your presentation on lessons learned from animal law advocacy in Africa. Thank you, dear Jim.
Thank you so much, Sabine. It's a pleasure to be here in front of all of you to give you the African perspective. We've heard from different parts of the world, and Africa is a big place. Africa is 54 countries or 55 countries, depending on who you're asking. And I hope that my view on what the kind of work that's been done in Africa is representative of what every single animal lawyer in all the different countries in Africa are doing. Now, I know I represent the voice of 1.5 billion people and probably the work of 30 different animal lawyers. So please, as I say this, much of this work is not my own. It's mostly me summarizing what is happening in Africa. So I represent Lawyers for Animal Protection in Africa. We're a small nonprofit registered in Kenya, but working regionally in Africa to create a legal voice for animals. Animals have long been ignored, especially when it comes to development policy issues. Our work has always been to make sure that animals have a voice, that we don't forget that they too share the space in the same world we live in. We do this through a lot of collaboration. A lot of our work is held together and stitched together through MOUs across Africa. We recently just signed an MOU with an organization in Rwanda, helping fight human-wildlife conflict there. So it's amazing just how many people want to work on this and how many people want to help. So our biggest and strongest tool in our work is collaboration. So we're mostly focusing on legal aid. Here we help people who either work with animals, raise animals, or live with animals or own them to better protect them. We work a lot in policy issues. As you may know, Africa is one of those continents that is developing rapidly. So as they develop, sometimes policy goes further and forgets animals. And our job is to make sure that their habitats, their way of lives are not, disrupted. And then, of course, the climate change conversation is heavily being spoken about in Africa, and everybody is talking about how people migrate from one area to another. But then again, we're also forgetting animals, that they too also share the same space we live in, and they too are facing this challenge. So we sit at one of the most, I think, urgent governance emergencies that I know of. That the mere fact that we have failed completely to create a space where animals can have proper protections. And in Africa, we have a myriad tier of animals. We have wildlife. You all know about our wildlife, the most iconic big five, to all the other tiny creatures nobody knows about. The mere fact that now wildlife-based economies are becoming a thing where countries are benefiting directly from wildlife-based economies. It is changing how we interact with animals. Then, of course, working animals. Animals like donkeys, which have forever served humanity, are now being discarded and being turned into farm animals for animal products and edge out and skin to go to China. Because with mechanization, people don't need donkeys anymore. And then, of course, farmed animals. Concentrated animal feeding operations are basically coming up in Africa. They are yet to become a problem, but in some countries they are a problem. But overall, they are increasing in Africa. And with 1.5 billion mouths to feed, it's becoming harder and harder to find food. And so the justification for farmed animals is very, very strong. And the farm lobby is also becoming a big problem. Ideally, looking into hyperproduction as opposed to looking into, I will say, like circular economies or economies where we can live with animals in a better way. And then, of course, when it comes to fishing, fish are some of the most neglected animals on the planet. The mere fact that we seem to have a form of fish blindness. And Africa accounts for 50% of all illegal fishing operations based on data that we have crunched. And we can tell that the move towards a blue economy, where economies are completely turning themselves into economies that fully extract animals, especially fish, is coming at a great detriment to our fish populations and even how we exist with our natural world. So the African landscape is full of a lot of challenges and also a lot of opportunities. And as a lawyer, I look at it from a point of opportunities. These are legal problems. We're lawyers, so it's very easy for us to gravitate to these problems with legal solutions. Now, strengthening rule of law is creating a situation where we finally have a door into court. We can bring animals into court. We can finally bring the voice of animals into court, something that was long neglected for a very long time. The mere fact that a lot of countries are now finally recognizing the link between animal welfare and the right to a clean and healthy environment. This is huge. I'll show you a couple of landmark cases that point to this that are quite instructive, that are laying the precedent for other countries to follow. Cultural shifts. This is a huge thing. People are becoming more aware of why animal protection is a big deal and how animal protection and human protection are interlinked, intertwined. People have finally started gravitating to the knowledge that we can't legislate for humans and for animals separately, forgetting that we also are just animals that just have a higher level of understanding at some point, that's able to well organize around laws than other animals, that we actually owe a duty to protect them the same way they protect us. Political will is changing, but strangely, political will is changing to the direction of animal-based economies. Political will is mostly responding to, oh, finally we recognize animals as a thing because we can exploit them. And also political will is moving to the direction of, if we want a safer human population, we need to figure out how the eating of wildlife and eating of animals is contributing to to zoonotic diseases. For example, I think maybe 50 out of the 54 countries in Africa perform poorly in zoonotic disease responses. Meanwhile, at least 30 of those countries eat wildlife and endangered species, creating this perfect storm of potential problems. We know COVID came from wet markets and from eating of wildlife. So it's fascinating that still countries are still lagging behind in this area. For example, countries did a lot of work into legislating for anti-COVID procedures targeting humans, but we forgot animals, where the disease came from. So it's a big challenge there. And then, of course, animal-based economies. Most countries in Africa that have wildlife are now gravitating to farming wildlife as animal products. And this is a massive challenge that many lawyers across Africa are challenging. So to show you what this looks like, I will touch on maybe 3 or 4 big cases that can just point to you to just the hope that I have that Africa could be turning a corner. So one, we've had 2 massive cases coming out of South Africa. South Africa is one of those countries that have decided that farming wildlife is a thing, and they've turned it into like an economic opportunity for them. And the work of amazing lawyers, for example, like our co-founder, Amy Wilson in South Africa, and many other like-minded organizations in South Africa, they've been able to challenge, some of these government initiatives. For example, the lion bone case ruling coming out of South Africa, pretty much was able to put a stop to the canned hunting operations that were coming out of Africa. Literally, they were farming lions and selling their bones to China and Asia. And to us, we found this to be atrocious and a violation of animal welfare and animal rights. The outcome of this court ruling is that animal welfare is now intricately connected with the right to a clean and healthy environment. It's impossible for you to just look at these 2 things as 2 distinct things. Finally, courts have been able to pronounce and finally give muscle to this skeleton that was hanging out there. And finally, we have something we can actually hold on to and say, hey, animal welfare and the right to a clean and healthy environment are intricately linked. Then, of course, with the penguin case, the most recent one coming out of South Africa too, where a court held a moratorium and a prohibition for fishing to protect critically endangered penguin species from decline and extinction. Literally, this is where human beings and penguins were fighting over the same resource, which is fisheries and fishing grounds. And the court held them and said, hey, you have the entire ocean open to you. You can go anywhere you want to, but you have to let this species of penguins, which are critically endangered and which are part of our heritage, which only have a home here, to have a say. And to us, that was a huge ruling, because for the very first time, courts were able to say, hey, human interests don't override animal interests, and that was huge. Then, of course, another case that I was personally involved in was the donkey skin trade ruling coming out of Kenya, where 5 or 6 abattoirs and slaughterhouses were set up in Kenya to slaughter donkeys. By the time we could get into court, they had slaughtered around 300,000 donkeys, which is pretty much like a sizable part of our population. I want to think like maybe 10, 15% of our entire donkey population. And our thinking was, hey, before you come and unleash the juggernaut of industry on a species like this, we need to understand what are the knockoff effects of such industrialization and, of course, animal welfare. They were literally slaughtering donkeys, throwing away the meat, sometimes even burning it, and then, of course, just only selling the hide for edgel being sold to China. And to us, we felt this was an affront to animal welfare and, of course, a sustainable exploitation of this species. And obviously, it was an affront to animal welfare. So this, of course, led into like a massive, continent-wide ban where the African Union passed a prohibition and a moratorium banning all the trading donkey skin all across Africa. Currently, this is held together purely by this moratorium, but I hope in coming years we'll strengthen our laws in a way that donkeys are not left behind. Then, of course, one of the more obvious cases that I think this is one of the most landmark cases. All of us know about the Masai Mara. Nobody doesn't know about the Masai Mara. If you like watching Nat Geo, you've probably watched something from the Mara. And a couple of years ago, I think maybe a decade ago, the Tanzanian government wanted to set up like a highway. On the screen, you will see the red bit. That's where the highway was supposed to go through, literally cutting the migration of over 2 million wildlife species. Now, that seems insane. And the East Africa Court of Justice agreed that was kind of stupid for a government to do that and say that, hey, your interest of getting somewhere faster don't override the animal interest of their natural behavior and migratory behavior, pretty much protecting a habitat for this species. And which kind of connected us with the notion that it's not just about protecting wildlife or animals, it's about protecting where they live and where they thrive. Those two things cannot be delinked. We have to connect it to whether it's farmed animals, whether it's wildlife species, whether it's working animals. Those two things must always be protected. And I'll touch on this in coming slides. So still, Africa is still the wild, wild west when it comes to the protection of animals. Most animals were either domesticated here, we've for eternity used animals here, but still, our protections for animals are still a bit lacking, and this creates an amazing opportunity for us. There are at least 20 countries out there that are implementing some form of reforms, either anti-cruelty reforms, farm animal reforms, trade, transport reforms, and 14 others that are considering, and then 13 other countries where it has completely stalled. Countries like DRC were in an active civil war, we understand. Somalia, who don't have a government, we understand. Chad, Sudan, that are currently not even a country anymore because they're in civil war, we understand. You will notice that most of the countries are in the Sahel, and these are countries that are currently very unstable at the moment. So we do understand if reforms there have stalled. But then again, you can see there are at least, I will say, 34 countries where reforms are actually coming up, and this is where we're needed the most as animal lawyers, because we don't want reforms to be driven by the industry, because the reforms driven by the industry will always lean towards exploitation as opposed towards preservation, conservation, or even sustainable use. So some of the challenges we faced are obvious. There's the same challenges everybody else has brought up, but ours are kind of more nuanced. When it comes to political goodwill and community pushback, it comes into Us telling people who are already starving not to eat animals, that's problematic. We are having a big problem trying to pass that conversation. So pushing them towards more sustainable food sources or alternative food sources has become like our best angle to fight this. Political goodwill has become a big problem. Countries which are trying to fund themselves will always see animals as an extra bit for revenue, for making revenue. For example, us fighting the Kenyan government took forever. The Kenyan government only listened to the African Union. The Kenyan government had already signed deals with China to transport and move thousands and thousands of donkey skins without even thinking about its animal welfare implications. But only when AU said you can't do this is when the Kenya government was like, oh yeah, it's okay, we'll stop. Then, of course, competing economic interests. Countries that are pretty much fighting for revenue will always see animals as an outlet for revenue too. The new blue economy drive and industry in Africa is purely looking into exploiting our seas without even thinking what are the knockoff effects and the long-term effects of what they're doing. Then, of course, underfunding and donor dependency. Honestly, most of us work either purely without funding. Sometimes we have very little funding to do this. For most people who are in this field, it's purely a passion project for them. And this is not sustainable if we are to fight for animals. Remember, we are fighting industry that is well-oiled, well funded, while at the same time we are just coming and showing up with our passion. And that is just not enough. We could win in the courts of law. When it comes into courts of public opinion, where money actually matters to drive this narrative, we lose. Then, of course, limited collaboration across NGOs and lawyers. Of course, Africa is huge, 55 countries, at least 4 different languages, 4 different national languages, then maybe at least 120 other. It gets my neighbor with his bike. It gets tricky trying to combine all this collaboration. And then of course, things like World Animal Justice allow us to come together and commune and share ideas and share knowledge. And this is why some of these collaboration networks actually matter. And then of course, burnout. Fighting for animal rights and welfare is a very lonely journey, and it takes a heavy toll on most people. And in all fairness, the hardest bit about this is if most of us actually leave this industry and move to either work for industry or for government, and sometimes their passion runs out purely because of burnout. And it has taken a while for us to start incorporating wellness in amongst us lawyers and saying, hey, we are sometimes fighting what we feel is a losing war. We shouldn't give up. We should keep having hope and knowing that we will do well. If we just stick within, if we just keep fighting, we will be okay. So burnout is a big deal, and I know a couple, 4 or 5 different animal lawyers, people used to identify as animal lawyers, who have completely left the field and gone into private industry or to go into private practice. And these are the people we need the most, yet they've burnt out. Then, of course, so how do we overcome this? These challenges can be overcome easily through the opportunities are simple, leveraging on storytelling and media for impact. Ignorance in Africa is huge purely because the previous approach we were using is not working. Telling people not to eat animals because animals are sentient is not working anymore. But we've realized that shaming them is not a good approach. It's actually antagonizing them. So leveraging on storytelling is important. Linking animals to their culture, linking animals to their heritage is the thing that matters the most. People will fight for things they care for, not for things they feel shamed for. Forming coalitions and alliances across borders, it's helping us. We're able to fight cases in Namibia, cases in different countries, because we are able to connect with people who are ready and willing to work. Then building legal capacity, training young lawyers in animal law. Animal law was never a thing 10 years ago in Kenya, but now it's a thing. It's a full-on course in at least 3 different law schools, and we're happy about that it's finally been inculcated and put into school curriculums, and people are learning this as a thing. And then, of course, blending law and community-based approaches. Finally, we have learned that it's only by supporting the people who work and live with animals that we can save animals. For example, in my area of wildlife, we offer legal aid to people who are injured and harmed and killed by animals so that they don't retaliate and kill the same animals. Legal aid allows them to have like a soft landing and helping them access compensation, helping them access and unlock their legal rights, helps them not build, create what we call social carrying capacity, where people are able to live with these animals in a way that they don't see them as a consistent danger. So never forget the community in which people live in. They are the initial protectors and the only protectors you'll ever need. Then finally, how do we build resilience? Providing mental health support for all of us lawyers. It's not easy. Like Altamush was saying, doing that in Pakistan literally was not easy. He was carrying rocks. Like I want to feel like he was just pushing up a huge rock up a hill. Like seriously, that was not easy what he's done. And the things that have been done by the animal lawyers in this room are not easy, and I celebrate their feat. And then continuous learning from peers around the world. Things that are being done in Ukraine, being done in India, being done in Pakistan are now being used and applied in other countries too. And it's useful. We see what works and what doesn't before we waste time and money. And then, of course, diversifying funding streams. Not relying on donor funding is one of those things that we need to cut off because we'll always be pushed by donor interests, and that is not how we should be pushing the fight for animals. And then, of course, at the end of the day, mentorship and peer support networks. Just having World Animal Justice as a network of lawyers who are like-minded and who are doing the same things in different parts of the world and linking and communing together creates that camaraderie we all need. And you really cannot underestimate the power of these networks. With that, I conclude my presentation. You can find us on www.lapa.africa, and we look forward to connect with all of you in the coming future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jim. I could listen to you for hours. I love so much your wisdom and humanity and the peace in your voice and the experience you're sharing with us. It's a blessing. Thank you very, very much. Thank you too for highlighting this really groundbreaking and game-changing decisions. Because I feel they're not really well known in the field. So it was really good to highlight them. Very promising for more systemic change, say, in the future. Also for the map of African law reforms, that makes me think that it's also an opportunity to thank you and LAPA for our collaboration on the database of anti-cruelty laws in Africa. So we are currently doing this database that should be released by the end of the year, compiling the anti-cruelty laws and specific bans towards animals through Africa and African countries. And yes, finally, your challenges and ways to build resilience. I really love the way you shared it with a lot of transparency, and also for us to keep on holding and keeping hope, because I believe that's really what we need to continue fighting for animals as we are doing. So thank you very much for sharing these wise words with us, Jim. And I will give the floor now to the last speaker, who is also a really wise woman, really connected to spirituality and also to the reality of fighting for animals, who is Fiolita Berandhini. So Fiolita, you can share your screen while I'm introducing yourself. So Fiolita Berandhini Saishu is known as Vio, and she's an Indonesian attorney and animal law advocate. She's the founder of Animals Don't Speak Human and has been at the forefront of legal protection for animals since 2016. She's working with international stakeholders on law reform. Dear Vio, it's now my honor to give you the floor for your presentation titled Voices of Advocacy, Bridging Policy, Culture, and Compassion for Animals in Bali. Thank you, dear Vio.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Sabine, for the introduction. I hope everyone can see my presentation now. Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's a true pleasure to be here with you on World Animal Day, participating in this international webinar. I'm deeply honored to join with such a diverse and passionate group of individuals at World Animal Justice who are committed to advancing the protection of any species of animals in many countries. So yeah, my name is Fio. Please call me Fiolita Berandhini. Please call me Fio for short. And today I'm excited to share insight from my work in Bali, Indonesia, a small island in Indonesia, with my organization called Animals Don't Speak Human. Yeah, so yeah, the organization is established in 2019, which is located in Bali, and our work is doing the legal advocacy, research, and education. Of course, our mission is to protect animals, and yeah, ensuring their rights and welfare are respected. And our vision is a world where all animals are valued, protected, and treated with kindness. I want to jump directly with our main project in Bali, which is protecting the hands or fight against the cruel system, which is battery cage in Bali. So this is our footage that we found during our scoping report back in 2023, 2024, where there are so many welfare issues that we found. So at that time, we documented across more than 200 farms in Bali, including 48 layer hen farms. And it reveals so many animal welfare and legal infringement. Some of them is overcrowding, as you can see from the slide. Many layer hens were found to kept in these really small battery cages, and it's severely limiting their ability to move, perch, or express their natural behavior. There are also a majority of farms lack of environmental enrichment, such as nesting areas, perching, dust bedding, that are really essential for the welfare of the hens. We also found a general lack of awareness and enforcement of Indonesian animal welfare regulation among farmers, and many farms operated without regular veterinarian supervision. That's raising concern about disease management, the overuse of antibiotics, and human treatment. Yeah, talking about antibiotic overuse, we saw that it's often used routinely, like almost every day by the farmers, not just using it for treating the illness, but it's common use because the farmers just don't know how to mitigate the risk that they face, just like to less the stress of the animals. So antibiotic is like the easiest way that they can found, and it's kind of like easy for them to buy it through online shop without any veterinarian prescription. And this activities like the usage of antibiotics commonly mixed into feed or drinking water. Yeah, talking about the antibiotic usage in Indonesia, there is a ban under the law that any farmers is prohibited to use any antibiotic. And yeah, the other things is the legal infringement identified by my team, which is there are so many farms surveyed by our group found that they operating without proper business licenses or operational permit, which is a direct violation of local and national regulation. We also found that majority of farmer in Bali specifically, they don't have any waste management system, which is it should be like mandatorily have by them. It is resulting in the disposal of manure, antibiotic residues, or untreated waste water into rivers or open land. These practices contributes to environmental pollution, pose public health risks, and have led to conflicts within surrounding communities.
Theo, I'm sorry to interrupt. Oh, yes, I just wanted to make sure because it was the same slide.
Yeah.
And yes,
Yeah,
there's like a... Oh,
Is
okay,
it
sorry.
already
Yeah,
moved or not?
there's like a... Yeah. Oh, yes. I mean, you still have 7 minutes, if it's okay
Yeah.
for you. And yes,
Yeah,
there's
sure.
like a paper noise on the background. I'm not sure if it's because maybe you're in a room with other persons. I'm not sure. Okay, no, now we don't hear it anymore. That's okay. It was just a background noise, but it stopped now, so that's fine. Please
Okay,
go ahead.
so
Sorry.
okay, but the slide is still visible, right?
Yes, absolutely. We see the map of Indonesia right now.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. So yeah, this is just I just want to show about the location of Bali, which is like really small here, and Indonesia is huge country. And in Bali itself, like the population of laying hen is quite huge, and it's always like increase every year. So yeah. How about the legal framework? So Indonesia has several laws that touch on animal welfare, including law number 18 or 41, and there are some provision in the criminal code that prohibit cruelty. These laws recognize animal sentience and include reference to the 5 freedoms. However, the legal framework is primarily focused on productivity, treating animals as industrial asset rather than sentient being deserving of protection. There are also lack of enforcement mechanism, uh, and the enforcement is rare and inconsistent. Yeah, I want to move about the problem landscape in Bali. Indonesia faces persistent challenge in enforcing its law effectively. Enforcement remains weak due to the systemic corruption, political interference, institutional inefficiencies, and public distrust. This issue undermine the rule of law, hinder justice, and erode democratic governance. Further, weak law enforcement in Indonesia is deeply rooted in combination of systemic and cultural challenges. Political interference often undermines the independence of legal institutions, allowing powerful individuals or groups to influence investigation and judicial outcomes for their own benefit. This is compounded by low morality and professionalism among law enforcement officers, where ethical lapses and a lack of accountability erode public trust. Legal framework are frequently inadequate or inconsistently applied, leaving gaps in protection and enforcement. No comprehensive provincial or national framework specifically for farm animal welfare. Moreover, poor coordination between agencies leads to fragmented effort and inefficiencies in handling cases. So in Bali, animals hold spiritual and cultural significance, especially in rituals and ceremonies. However, this reference doesn't always extend to farm animals, which is often viewed through a utilitarian lens. And cultural practices can make advocacy really, really complex because most of the traditional ceremonies may involve in animal sacrifice, and ethical concerns are often overshadowed by tourism and economic interests. I want to move about the cultural complexity. This is kind of like our strategy on how to engage with many stakeholders in Bali specifically. So in Bali, we have like the local philosophy called Trihita Karana. It is kind of like central to Balinese culture, has become a foundational framework for shaping sustainable ecotourism policies in Bali. This philosophy emphasizes harmony in three key relationships, which is harmony with the divine, or spiritual values, which is respecting all living beings, including animals, is part of honoring creation and maintaining spiritual balance. And the other two is harmony among people, which is I'm using it to compassion to force the many stakeholders to do the compassion and empathy that are central values, which can extend to how communities treat the animals as part of their shared environments. And the last one is harmony with nature, which is animals are integral to the ecosystem, so treating them well also will be support the environmental balance and sustainability. So with this philosophy is kind of like a big changer for us to easily spoke with many stakeholders on how to change the policy, on how to force the companies, for example, to do their catch-free commitment, because everything in Bali needs to be aligned with Trihita Karana. So using this philosophy is kind of like a game changer for us, and it's kind of like easier to talk with them, which is most of them Balinese, to include it animals on every aspect of their life or industry, of course. Yeah, and advocating for animal welfare in Bali really requires a deep understanding of local custom, religious beliefs, and community dynamics. Direct criticism of traditional practices can be counterproductive or even offensive. Instead, successful advocacy must be culturally grounded, using frameworks like Trihita Karana to promote compassion and ethical treatment of animals. By aligning welfare goals with spiritual and ecological values, advocates can foster meaningful change that resonates with Bali identity. So the strategic response to improving the welfare of farm animal in Bali must bridge the gap between the policy and the cultural practices, recognizing that the island's unique socio-cultural dynamics and its global tourism appeal. Capacity building is also like really essential to equip farmers, veterinarian or animal husbandry students, local authorities, and animal health workers with the knowledge and tools to implement human and sustainable animal agriculture practices. This is also includes the conducting some trainings to increase the understanding of animal welfare standard implementation, veterinarian care, and sustainable farming techniques. Simultaneously, policy influence should aim to strengthen and enforce regulation that protect farm animals, while ensuring these policies are culturally sensitive and locally adaptable. Community legal empowerment plays a critical role by educating rural and marginalized communities about their rights and responsibilities regarding animal welfare, enabling them to participate in advocacy and oversight. Finally, aligning these efforts with ethical sustainability industries such as transitioning to catch-free eggs and certified human products can create economic incentive for better animal treatment. By integrating these strategies, Bali can foster a model where cultural heritage, community empowerment, and tourism development converge to support the ethical treatment of farm animals. So I want to share some of our success story. So in advancing farm animals welfare in Bali, our work began with a comprehensive survey of over than 200 farms across the island, where we uncovered widespread non-compliance with basic animal welfare standard. This critical evidence formed the basis of our scoping report, which successfully initiated policy discussion with multiple stakeholders, including government, companies, and academic institutions. Building on this momentum, we established strategic partnership, including memorandum of understanding with two leading universities in Bali, a national radio collaboration. So every month we can just like share anything about animal law, animal welfare, policy, whatever, to increase the knowledge of Balinese people about how to treating animals respectfully, and also like conducting training of trainers program for veterinarian and animal husbandry students. We also delivered some public lectures and facilitate corporate catch-free commitment, promoting higher welfare standard in food sourcing. And importantly, our work receives fully support from the tourism department of Bali, allowing us to align animal welfare with Bali's growing ethical tourism movement, which is deeply rooted in the island's spiritual philosophy of Trihita Karana. This includes initiatives such as catch-free egg sourcing and the promotion of certified human products, creating economic incentive for better treatment of farm animals in Bali. We also have been entrusted to assisting in the development of animal welfare curriculum, and we look forward to contributing meaningfully to this important academic initiative. In doing so, we emphasize the need for the curriculum to be firmly aligned with the existing laws and regulation on animal welfare. At the same time, we recognize that many of these laws are outdated or insufficient to meet current welfare standard. Therefore, while supporting academic institutions, we also actively engaging with policymakers to advocate for the amendment and modernization of national animal welfare regulation, ensuring they reflect both the ethical principles and international best practices. So what is the lesson learned that I want to share, that throughout our journey advocating for farm animal welfare in Bali, we have learned that real change requires unwavering perseverance and resilience, especially when facing deeply rooted system and various form of resistance. We are not merely maintaining momentum, but we are pushing boundaries. Our approach is holistic, integrating policy advocacy, public education, community empowerment, and cross-sector collaboration to drive systemic and sustainable impact. A key foundation of our progress is cultural grounding, ensuring that every strategy we implement aligns with Bali's spiritual and social values, such as Trihita Karana, again. By honoring local wisdom and building trust, we have formed meaningful partnership across communities, academia, and industry. Equally important is our ability to adapt strategies to local realities, whether through university engagement, alignment with ethical tourism, or practical support for farmers. These lessons continue to shape our mission, strengthening our belief that farm animals welfare reform is not only possible, it must be realized with courage, cultural sensitivity, and strategic vision. And yeah, we are not just like working for change, but we are working for the transformation that directly improves the life of animals who cannot speak for themselves. Yeah, thank you. If there is any question or feedback, I would like to hear or discuss with everyone.
Thank you very much, Theo. It was really detailed about your really important work in Bali for animals, and thank you for raising concrete examples of the difficulties that you face as well, and the solutions. I really like your spiritual tip, and which is also something that we find in different cultures and philosophy around the world, this notion of respect for life Thank you so much for attending this webinar, for your active participation, and for all the learning that have been shared today. It was really, really inspiring. And I was loving to organize this webinar and to be your share today. And I really hope that we will continue our actions and collaborate together for animals and for making this world a better place for them through law and advocacy and all what we can do for them, because all what we do is meaningful. Even if sometimes we can feel meaningless, every single action is meaningful, and better to do something for animals than nothing, of course. So thank you so much. Hold on and keep hope and faith in our movement and collaboration. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. Happy World Animal Day, everyone. Thank you for your hard work.